Hello, and welcome to Season 2 of the Working While Homeschooling podcast, the podcast for workingwhilehomeschooling.com, where our mission is to help homeschooling parents make money and maybe even have a career while continuing to homeschool and without losing their sanity. My name is Julie. I am your host and resident career coach today. I want to thank you all for joining us and listening in. I hope you're doing well. On today's episode, we'll be talking to Masha, who is doing contract work and building her freelance writing career. So Masha, tell us about yourself.
I am a homeschooling mom, obviously, of 4 children. My youngest is 4 years old and my oldest is 10. We have homeschooled since kindergarten, so this is our 6th year homeschooling. I'm also a former journalist and a former U.S. diplomat who is now married to a U.S. diplomat, and we move around the world. We currently live in Bogota, Colombia, and I love to sew. It's my big hobby. I spend a lot of time doing it, and I have a hobby blog about sewing.
And you mentioned to me earlier that you were getting into doing some freelance work.
Yes. So I have run my own solely for hobby sewing blog since 2014. And one of the sewing pattern companies that I use a lot, and I'm a big fan of their work, put out a call for a new blog editor last October. And I had actually applied for this position when they first advertised it, I think in 2014, but I didn't get the job. But this time I did get the job. I think that my familiarity with their brand and also my own sewing blog that I could point to sort of as my portfolio for them to look at my work was what got me that job. And then when I started doing that job, it's sort of a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, wait a second, there might be other freelance work that I could do. And so I started researching some stuff online, and I came across the platform Upwork, which is an online platform that connects freelancers with people who are looking for freelancers and all different types of freelance work, web development, graphic design, writing, etc. And so I created a profile and put my stuff out there, and I just started doing a couple of little jobs here and there last month, which I'm hoping turns into something more because it's all work that I can do entirely from home.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of remote work, definitely. And I think it sounds good because this is also freelance work that's not necessarily set to a time schedule, so you can do it when it's convenient for you.
Right. That's exactly what it is. I did just land another freelance gig yesterday that's going to require me to make phone calls and do interviews. But as I am in the same time zone as most of the people I'll be talking to, I can still more or less set my own hours, by grabbing some time here and there during the day. I won't be able to do things late at night, but it's not super time intensive. So it should still be pretty easy to schedule into our homeschool day.
Great. Now, if somebody was listening to this and they're like, oh, well, I have a little hobby blog on X, I could do that too. Are there particular skills, let's say, that you're finding useful that someone might want to make sure they have if they're looking to get into this?
I mean, I'm a very new freelancer, so I don't have a ton of experience, but I will say from what I've been doing on Upwork and what I've seen, there is really quite a big market out there for people to write blog content for other people. And if you have any sort of expertise on anything, there's probably somebody out there who wants blog posts about it. I came across a listing for somebody who wants somebody to write a blog post about how to clean a school bus. That's pretty specific.
Yeah.
Right. I have no experience in cleaning school buses or really anything for that matter. So that was not a job that I applied for. This is not, I think that most of the work I've gotten so far has been on the basis of my blogging and not on my actual legitimate professional journalism experience, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Right.
So I think that if you do have your own blog, you're in a very good position to market yourself as a freelance writer because a lot of the stuff out there is really blog focused.
Tell us about your kind of homeschool thing. I mean, what's y'all's homeschool experience like? Do you guys follow a certain path or curriculum?
We are eclectic homeschoolers. I use a very wide variety of curricula that we either use straight out of the book or I tweak mostly out of the book. I like to have open and go kind of stuff. So in the last 6 years, we've, sort of tweaked our different subjects to the point where we found things that work for us. There's a history curricula that I've been using since the beginning that I love, and I think that we will just continue using it because it's so great. It's History Odyssey from Pandia Press. Speaking of which, they just sent an email to all of their newsletter people saying they were looking for blog writers. So I sent them an application off too, but I haven't heard back yet. So yeah, this stuff comes up everywhere. So we really like that. There's other subjects where we've sort of gone back and forth. My oldest two are girls, my youngest two are boys. So my youngest boy is in preschool right now, and he actually goes to a local preschool. I'll bring him home next year for kindergarten. So my son is in second grade this year. I have definitely found that he is interested in different things. My girls were kind of interested in the same things, and he's interested in different things. So that's been fun with him to branch out and look for some new things to challenge him. Like, he's really good at math, like really good at math. So he's working 2 grade levels ahead. And I asked around on a homeschool group that I was at, and somebody recommended Beast Academy, which is an online supplemental math thing. And we just started doing that, and he loves it. And it's great because I feel like he's being challenged. And so it's just been fun to sort of find new things for them to do. So that's basically our homeschooling. And one thing that I have figured out over the years is to not stress so much about whether or not they're getting everything that they would be getting in public schools. For example, the history curriculum we follow is classical, which you don't get in public schools where we're from. And I like that it's chronological. I think it makes more sense. And so I don't know, when we have downtimes, when I just can't focus on doing everything that needs to be done because I have work to do or I'm just tired or whatever, I just make sure they're all reading really good quality stuff. I figure if I bring good readers up out of this, then I've done my job.
Yeah, that was my theory too. Is like, once you learn how to read, you can learn about anything you want in the world at the library. It's like,
right.
Go
Exactly.
pick out whatever. You're interested in cows this week, go find a book in the library about cows. As long as you know how to read, you can do that.
And so my second grader, he's sort of getting the short end of the stick this year on history because my girls moved into the second level of the History Odyssey, and I can't do history with all of them at once anymore. And so I was trying to do it just with him and with them separately, and it just was proving to be too much. So I'm just having him read books about history stuff at this point, hoping that that's going to be good enough for now.
I think in second grade it is, to be honest. My girls are in 6th and 8th right now, and if I ask them what they studied in second grade, most of the time they don't even remember. I mean, long-term memory is, at least for my kids, just really wasn't there.
Yeah,
because we studied American history when my oldest hit second grade, and they don't remember any of it. That's the sad thing. I'm like, well, we studied this, guys. Let's talk about something that's unique to you and me, and I think that homeschooling when you move a lot, because a lot of people are, oh, so that's why you homeschool, which it is kind of why we homeschool a bit, that we can, that I can have at least one thing be kind of steady for them, and we have a little bit more control over their education. But what are some of the things that you've noticed or you found when you move a lot that you have to kind of be on top of with homeschooling in general?
I think, the school part itself, right, is easy because it's consistent. You're doing the same thing that you did last year. If you have the ability to ship all of your stuff, which I do, then it's really not a big deal. And then the fun part of moving is sort of adapting your curricula to take advantage of where you are. Like, we're in South America, and so last year we studied South American geography, and they learned all of that, and that was really cool. And that's something that we wouldn't necessarily have done at this time if we were still living in the United States.
Right.
That was cool. I think for us, what we have found is that I really have to put forth a pretty significant effort every time we move to try to create some social opportunities for my kids. That's something that I find to be a little bit difficult because I'm naturally pretty introverted. And so it forces me to sort of get out of my comfort zone and get out there and try to meet everybody and set up those play dates and do that stuff. And it can be pretty exhausting. And I think that's just one of the hard things about homeschooling when you move a lot, because you don't automatically have that community to plug into. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Having just moved last summer, so we're 6-7 months here now, I still feel like we're out of the house every single day and we're driving somewhere. For them to have some sort of outside activity every single day, which is nuts. It is absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. But like you said, I feel like I have to do that because I can't just walk in and say, okay, here's, like in the U.S., we can say, okay, here's your co-op. This is your social outlet, period. Or here is your, here's our church that has this, this, and this. Like, it's a lot more effort. I don't know. We've moved so many times now, but I would say that, a year into it, I feel like I can relax because we've kind of gotten the system down and they have their friends. But I feel like sometimes I do more effort in having them make friends than they do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's what's going on over here.
Right. And, which comes to like the do your kids get to do outside activities questions, or like the socialization question, which is always our most favorite question in homeschooling.
So annoying.
But being overseas like you and I are, where homeschooling isn't as maybe as accepted or as normal. And I live in a very homeschool friendly country at the moment, but it does seem like socialization is always the top of my mind. Do you find that true as well? Trying to get them that outside friends kind of thing?
Yeah, I do. It's something that I've struggled with the whole time that we're here. And I mean, I think that we've been reasonably successful, at least at having somebody to just like hang out with, once in a while. We haven't made any amazing friends on this posting, which is a little different than previous postings we've been at. It's been a little bit disappointing, but that's just how it is. And actually, we're on our way out. We're leaving in 4 months. So I kind of feel like maybe we're done making that effort for right now. And we're going back to the States where we do have a homeschool community and we do have homeschool friends. So we're really looking forward to reconnecting there.
Yeah, kind of checking back into your original.
Right.
So tell me kind of about like, what does a typical day in the life of your family look like when we're talking about homeschooling and everything? So what does that kind of schedule look like for you guys?
So I am the type of homeschool mom who wants my children to get dressed. We don't do school in our PJs. I just have this thing, like I need to get dressed in the morning, and it might not be right away. I might lounge around drinking coffee for an hour, but by 8 o'clock, I want everybody having eaten breakfast, teeth brushed, and dressed and ready to start school. My littlest one goes to preschool, so I take him to preschool while the others, do some of their busy work sort of while I'm gone. Like the preschool run takes like 20 minutes. And then I come back and we usually work until about 12. I mean, my girls are in 4th and 5th grade and they do pretty much everything on their own now. They come to me with questions, specifically with math, but I don't really teach anything to them except for religion, which we do once a week. Everything else they read themselves from books. And I've got to say, that's just, I don't know. I mean, I love homeschooling more each year we do it, but the year that they were able to really do that, which was last year, was just so amazing. Like, it made me love homeschool so much more because this is what it's about, like them being able to teach themselves. And my son, of course,
you too.
Right. Yeah. Because you can't teach all of the subjects to everybody every single day. You would go insane. Right now, I just kind of hang out, drink my coffee. Everybody comes to me for questions. And my son and I will do his phonics work and we'll do his math. And I do a lot more one-on-one with him than I do with them. Once a week, we'll usually do our science experiment that comes with our science curriculum. And then they start... Oh, the other thing that they have is they're taking online classes right now. So each of them has an hour of an online class 3 days a week, and that's in the morning. So while I'm hanging out, drinking my coffee, and they're coming to me with stuff, one of them is on their computer doing their online class. All of them are taking a liberal arts class, which is great. I really like it. At 12 o'clock, our Spanish teacher comes. That's 3 days a week. He comes, and they do their classes with him. That's when I might sneak away. Well, first I have to go and pick up my son from preschool, and then he might take a nap, and I might sneak away and do a little bit of work on the computer. I do have another job, which was my original working while homeschooling job, which is as a State Department contractor. And I can do a lot of my work from home, but I do have to go into the embassy for meetings. And I don't have a set schedule for that. I try to arrange my meetings either on Monday afternoons or on Friday afternoons, just because of the way that our homeschooling days are scheduled. But I try not to go in more than once a week. And lately the job has been pretty slow, so I haven't been even going in once a week. So I'll be gone for a few hours. I have a housekeeper who takes care of them while I'm gone doing that. But I try not to be out of the house more than about 5 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And that works out pretty well here. But back in the States, it'll be a little bit more difficult to schedule. So I'm trying to move away from that and maybe drum up more freelance work so that I can work entirely from home.
Yeah, we did talk a lot about that, about how difficult your kind of quote unquote first job is and trying to get away from that. So for those who are out there maybe trying to figure out how to get into work and get work, do you have any tips or advice of the looking for a job or looking for the freelance work aspect?
I mean, with the freelance stuff, again, I'm new to it. I just really know about Upwork, and it seems like there are lots of opportunities on there for people who are looking for opportunities. It seems as though if you have any writing background at all, you might be able to land something without too much trouble. They do have sometimes people who crop up there and say that if you're new to Upwork, it's okay, and they're just looking for somebody to do a job that may not be terribly interesting and probably pays very little. But I think that what I've read is that if you pay your dues and start out with that, you build up some reviews and stuff, you might be able to get more work. But if you're, like I said before, if you're a writer and you don't have a blog, you could start a blog just so that you have some portfolio to point at.
Right. What do your kids think about you working?
They're okay with it now. They didn't love it before. The State Department job that I had before I started homeschooling. And then I actually left it when I started homeschooling. But a year later, we had a family medical emergency in our family, and my husband was out of work for a while. And there was a good period of time there where we did not know if he was ever going to be able to go back to work. And he was still getting paid at that point, but I figured I should go back and see if I can get this job back in case I need to increase my hours and start working full time. And so that's what I did. And my children had just gone through this super traumatic event. My husband had had a stroke. He was entirely paralyzed on his left side. I had just had a baby. So my littlest one was just 2 weeks old when that happened. And the others were 2, 4, and 5. So when I went back to work, they were not super happy about that. And that was really hard for me. I mean, and I wasn't working, anywhere close to full time. I wasn't even working half time. I was leaving the house once a week at most.
Right.
But still, it was super difficult. And then when we moved to Bogota, again, they weren't super happy about it because, again, we had just moved to a new place. They didn't speak the language. I had this housekeeper who didn't speak English, and that was difficult. And now they're okay with it. What we've explained to them is that Papa makes the bucks that keeps the roof over our head and keeps the food in the refrigerator. But if we want extra stuff, if we want to take fun trips, that's where my money comes in. I think that has helped them be okay with it, but it was a transition.
I remember the last time we were overseas, my girls were very small, like 3 and 1. And I remember my oldest being very upset that Daddy was going back to work. He had to go to work in the morning. We basically said, but Daddy doesn't go to work, he can't buy you any candy. And she was like, oh. So Daddy works for several years. Daddy works for chocolate. That's like how it translates in her head for several years. So when you're like, I work for the extras. It's like, no, Daddy works for chocolate. She's like, well, go to work. We need chocolate. So we had that running joke in our head in our office, in our house for a long time. So do you get kind of like weird questions and comments from people when they find out that you're working at homeschooling?
Oh my gosh. How do you do it? I can't imagine. I would kill my kids if they were home with me all day. And it's just like, I don't know, when they're like, how do you do it? I always feel like it's not like an admiring how do you do it. There's sort of this undertone of like, oh my God, why do you do this to yourself? Just send your kids to school.
I definitely get that a lot as well.
Yeah, I get it all the time. And I don't know, like you just do what you have to do, right? You make your priorities.
Yeah.
And I think maybe as homeschooling moms, if you do have like a part-time job where you have to leave the house like I do. I mean, yes, I do find it difficult and challenging to arrange the childcare when I don't have a housekeeper that comes regularly. But I mean, one benefit of it is once a week or less than once a week, I could like put on clothes that didn't have snot on them and go out and talk to some grown-ups and maybe like go grab myself a coffee. Like there is a nice thing to it. Like it's a little bit of an escape, sort of feeling like you're yourself instead of the teacher and the mom and the nose wiper and whatever. And so like, yeah, I don't know what to say when people say that. I just kind of shrug because what can you say? You can be like, oh yeah, it's no problem because I'm super mom. Or you can do the false modesty thing. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. I do what you do. You do what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of wrap up, if there was like any last words of advice or encouragement or kind of words of caution even, have the listeners listen to today, like one last thing, if they got nothing else out of our conversation today, what would you want to have people hear?
I guess it would be to keep your eyes open to opportunities. With the exception of this freelance work on Upwork that I just started actively looking for, I didn't really go out and seek any of the jobs that I'm doing. And in fact, when I started my quote unquote first job, I wasn't even looking to work. I was invited to interview for a position that I wasn't sure that I wanted. Opportunities can pop by and have an idea of what you might be interested in so that you can seize on it when it comes, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Now, as we wrap up our episode today, I want to thank you all for listening in. There are a ton of great podcasts out there, but you chose to spend your time here with me, so thank you. Please be sure to check out our show notes for the links to my site, workingwhilehomeschooling.com, and all of the great ways you can connect with me online. I do appreciate our listener supporters, so if you enjoyed today's podcast, you too can support me with a small monthly donation that's going to help me continue with great content and interviews like you heard here today on the Working While Homeschooling podcast. Just check out the show notes for the link. I do appreciate your online reviews, all of you that have been subscribing to the podcast, and thank you to all of you who have been sharing this with your homeschooling friends. If you know someone that you think would be a great guest of the podcast, please let me know at julie@workingwhilehomeschooling.com. Thank you for listening in today. Thank you to Masha for being our guest. And everyone, please make sure you're joining us in our Facebook group for continuing conversation on today's topic and beyond. I look forward to seeing each of you soon at our next podcast for Working While Homeschooling.